Hello,
Okay.
everybody. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you all. I am Anita Rosas, and I am the Assistant Director of Social Work for the Maryland Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. I have been with them for 29 years, and prior to my promotion to Assistant Director, which I've done for 3 years, I spent 16
Well,
years as the supervisor at North Branch Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland. And North Branch is Maryland's maximum security facility. They house about 1,100 incarcerated people there. While during my time there as the supervisor, I started noticing that, of course, we had really high rates of solitary confinement being used, and that many people were there for months, years, many years on solitary confinement. I noticed that there were a lot of behavioral problems and a lot of violence on the segregation unit. I observed higher rates of suicidal ideation. And also, sadly, I started noticing, because social work is involved in reentry planning, I started noticing that more than half of the inmates that were being released from that facility were coming directly from long-term segregation. And I kind of felt like that was a problem. And so it piqued my interest, and I got more involved and started doing research and developed a training and started going around doing some training for social workers within my own system and outside. And so it's kind of become a real interest of mine in trying to make some changes in the community, in the system, correctional systems, and how they use solitary confinement. So let's talk about it a little bit. I would really prefer if you talk rather than put it in the chat, just so we can have more dialogue going. So tell me what you know about solitary confinement. Has anybody known anybody that's been on solitary? Have you had any clients that have been incarcerated?
I used to be a correctional officer in Tennessee, um, and I worked super max, so I know solitary confinement. Um,
Yes.
you had to do a horrible crime to be in there, and it's not fun because, like, say they only have a few days in solitary confinement, and they come back into general pop. They have trouble adjusting. They're by themselves. Just somebody checking on them every little bit. So they don't get that interaction and they don't know what to do when they come out.
Yes. Yes. Anybody else? So let's talk about the official definition. What is solitary confinement? It's a form of imprisonment in which an incarcerated person lives in a single cell, sometimes, but often it's double cell, with little or no contact with other people for up to 23 to 24 hours per day. So basically 24/7, they're in this cell. Sometimes they have to share a cell. In most places, most states, they are sharing a cell just because of the housing crunch and staffing problems. So they are double celled. Now think about a cell. So an average cell is 6 by 8 feet. An average bathroom is 5 by 8 feet. So imagine living in your bathroom for 24 hours a day for days, weeks, months, and even years, living in your bathroom, eating, reading, relaxing, everything that you do is in your bathroom. Now, imagine doing that with your significant other, who is, I would assume, somebody that you kind of like and enjoy spending time with. But even that would get pretty old if you're in there 24/7 with even somebody you like. Now think about spending this time with someone you probably didn't even know. And suddenly this other person is in your bathroom with you that you have to live with all the time. Um, it's a pretty inhumane situation, really. So why do we use it? Well, it's kind of the control strategy that correctional systems in our country have used for years. The belief is that it reduces and controls violence because people are in a more controlled environment. They're not out running around throughout the facility. Um, there's the belief that it keeps incarcerated people, staff, and the public safe. And we use it to punish people who are incarcerated because sometimes people who are incarcerated do things to break the rules. And in our um, incarcerating systems, there's the belief that people need to be punished when they break the rules. So, because of that, we give them segregation time. So, we do have some reasons for why we use it, but what are the concerns about it? There's actually no evidence that it serves any legitimate purpose. There's no evidence that it does reduce violence. In fact, studies have shown us that high rates of solitary confinement actually increase violence in facilities. There are numerous studies that show evidence of severe psychological damage caused by solitary. And in addition to psychological damage, what do we know about young people and brain growth? How long do people's brains grow? Anybody have any thoughts?
Chris, Chris said until age 25.
Yes, yes. So the research is showing us that your brain continues to develop until age 25. But think about, we have young people who are incarcerated who are also spending months and years on solitary confinement. And what does that type of isolation do to brain growth? And how are we stunting people's brain growth when we have them on solitary confinement? So the United Nations has said that the use of solitary confinement beyond 15 days is torture. And so some states are using this 15-day threshold, but most states are not. We are keeping people locked down for months and years. So in West Virginia, um, I looked for some numbers of the use of solitary confinement, but was not able to find any actual numbers. However, the ACLU says that West Virginia jails are some of the deadliest in the nation and that it's one of the heaviest incarcerating states in the country. And even the ACLU says it's unclear how many people are kept in solitary confinement. So they are apparently having trouble getting numbers on that as well. There is one West Virginia prisoner who recently made headlines, Keith Lowe. He was in segregation over 12 years at Mount Olive Correctional Facility, which is West Virginia's maximum security facility. He had been diagnosed with numerous mental health issues, had attempted suicide several times. A judge ordered him immediately transferred to a mental health facility, but the order was ignored. And he again attempted to take his life, and finally, just this past September, was transferred to a medical facility in another state. So it feels like West Virginia might be overusing solitary confinement and is not providing appropriate services to people who have mental health issues. In Maryland, um, we do try not to put people with serious mental illness on segregation or try to keep it very limited, but it still happens. So what are some of the negative effects that, again, we have research showing us that there are numerous negative effects of solitary confinement: anxiety, nervousness, headaches, lethargy, insomnia, increased rates of self-harm, increased rates of depression and other mental health issues. And this could be people who go onto segregation and are fine, but then decompensate because of the stresses of being on segregation. As people on segregation have double the rate of suicidal ideation, and they have a shortened lifespan overall after spending many years on segregation. We also have this new thing called post-incarceration syndrome, and it is caused by any prolonged incarceration because we know that most states are not doing well with providing education, job training, or rehabilitation services within our carceral systems. So anybody who has been incarcerated for a while can have PICS, post-incarceration syndrome, when they are released. So, but it is more severe to those who have been in segregation. Some symptoms of PICS include an institutionalized personality traits. I've heard people talk about uh, once they're released, they only use their spoon to eat because that's all they had for the 5 years they were incarcerated. They always ate with a spoon and they kind of forget how to use a knife or a fork. Standing in front of doors, waiting for somebody else to open them. Um, so, after you're used to not having any control over your life, you kind of just stand there and wait for things to happen to you. And so that's what it means by being institutionalized. Um, Regular PTSD symptoms can be a result of post-incarceration syndrome. Meeting some of the characteristics of antisocial personality disorder. We can't always assume that when we see those characteristics of antisocial personality disorder in somebody who's been incarcerated, it may be a part of just this post-incarceration syndrome. It may not actually be antisocial personality disorder. And then social sensory deprivation syndrome. When you're used to being in a little cell and only being around a controlled group of people, it's hard to be out in the community around groups of people. It can be very stressful. So many people who have been incarcerated struggle to adjust to the community because of all the people around, all the sounds that are going on, um, and also an increased um, substance use disorder. Um, also is a symptom of post-incarceration syndrome. And this syndrome can last for up to 5 years after release. So some other symptoms of post-incarceration syndrome that you might see if you work with any clients who have been incarcerated are feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, intense fear, intense anger, rage, flashbacks, just like PTSD symptoms, tendency towards impulsive violence, wanting to isolate from others to avoid being triggered. And for people that already had PTSD, which many people who are incarcerated do have PTSD, all those symptoms are intensified after being incarcerated. So essentially, we often make people worse when we incarcerate them for long periods of time. So some additional facts about solitary confinement. High rates of confinement, solitary confinement, have been linked to increased violence. People in solitary are more vulnerable to abuse by staff. Keeping someone in solitary costs 3 times more. And the United States is the only Western industrialized nation to use long-term solitary confinement. Interesting, huh? Other states, particularly, or other countries, particularly the Nordic countries, are really doing a lot of neat stuff with some very positive rehabilitation ideas, and they don't use solitary confinement. They don't consider imprisonment as kind of punishment like we do in the United States, and they're having really good success with their rehabilitation programs. So we're going to talk about some vignettes for discussion. So I want us to think about how should these situations be handled to be most ethical, keeping in mind the NASW Code of Ethics. Is that a realistic solution in the prison? And what would be the best solution considering the safety of everyone involved? And is the solution ethical? So the first vignette is a 22-year-old incarcerated man has been involved in many fights in the facility, resulting in serious injury to other incarcerated people. He is eventually identified as a leader and shot caller in the MS-13 gang. and is placed on solitary confinement indefinitely. So, talk to me. Thoughts? So, what are some things in the code of ethics that might apply to this situation? Nobody wants to give us any input?
Chris said dignity and worth of individuals.
Yeah. Yeah, like how does this, we're keeping this 22-year-old man on solitary confinement indefinitely. Where is the dignity and worth in that? What else?
I'll jump in. You know, it just seems that there are lots of data now which certainly indicate that long-term solitary confinement is harmful to the individual. So then in some way, by placing this person on solitary confinement indefinitely, I mean, there's nothing corrective about that or rehabilitative about that, but it really seems that it is actually creating harm.
But just to play devil's advocate, and you're exactly right. And when we talk about somebody who's only 22, we just said we know that the brain continues to grow until age 25. So what are we doing to this 22-year-old person?
Mm-hmm.
But if he's a shot caller in a gang known to be violent, and he has ability to reach people on the outside, he could be calling for people's murder or,
Yeah.
y-
Yeah,
you
and
know,
that's the dilemma is, the protection of the one versus the protection of the broader public. And even though this person is confined and still having avenues to reach the outside, I think you're describing a real ethical dilemma in how to do this. It just seems like solitary confinement in the way in which we think of it in prisons is probably not a good way to help his developing brain,
yeah,
and that it might even cause harm,
yeah,
further
yeah,
harm.
yeah. And you're exactly right. Like when we think about how we raise children, like who are misbehaving, we talk about you can't just punish them all the time. You have to tell them what to do instead, teach them what to do instead. So are we doing that? No. Just placing somebody on solitary confinement. Yes, maybe we are protecting the public, maybe we are in some way protecting staff and other incarcerated people. But if we as social workers believe in dignity and worth of the person, we believe in social justice. We believe in the importance of human relationships. And keeping this young man on solitary confinement is not in line with those basic core principles of social work. So, any ideas of what we could do instead? Like, is that the right thing to do? Keep him on segregation?
Karen asked, who determines that an individual will have indefinite solitary confinement? Ooh, people keep chatting. Any reassessment later? And then other folks, no, because he still gets phone calls. No, indefinitely limit his access to the outside world. Sorry, I was just reading all the chats for
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So in Maryland, there is a team of case management people generally who make the decision about how long people are on segregation, and they get reviewed every 30 days. But often, rarely is social work included in that uh, those discussions unless we ask to be, or it's somebody specifically that we've been working with. They do sometimes get phone calls, now that a lot of the inmates in the incarcerated people in Maryland have tablets, and they can make some phone calls and do emails from their tablets. But before the tablets, they were very limited on their phone calls. They got like 1 or 2 a week. You can write, and in our maximum security facility here in Maryland, you can go outside to yard, and that would be like 5 days a week. You're offered that. Often it's in the middle of the night, and the yard is basically kind of like a dog run, where we would like take you if your dog's at a boarding kennel. It's that kind of run, and that's where we put people for yard. So it's basically has just really high fence around it. And many times people out there throw urine and feces on other incarcerated people. So a lot of people don't like to go out to yard because it just kind of causes more problem than it's worth to go outside. So they pretty much are in their cells 24/7, and they're offered showers about 3 times a week. So yes, staffing, somebody mentioned about staffing issues. Yes, particularly, recently, staffing has been a huge problem. I would imagine West Virginia is having the same issues that Maryland's having. Um, most of our custody staff are working overtime, mandatory overtime, 3 to 5 days a week. So they do their own shift and then work a second shift also. So they're all exhausted, um, angry, miserable because they're stressed and overworked, because we've been unable to hire staff, and it also means that the incarcerated people, it has limited the programming that social work staff can do with people. It's limited their ability to get out of their cells. It's limited their ability to attend educational and other programming services. Um, so it is keeping people in their cells more. So let's try the next one. So this is a 20-something incarcerated man being housed on segregation. He has serious intellectual disabilities, spends most of his time kicking the cell door and yelling, often for hours at a time. He was moved to the special needs unit, and that's a unit for people who are incarcerated who have a serious mental illness and need additional services because they were at risk being left in the general population. So he was moved to the special needs unit, but the noise that he made was too disruptive for the other SMI residents, so he was returned to segregation. One of the things that he liked doing was writing recipes, he called them, which really made no sense. But he could do that for hours, would sit and make up these nonsensical recipes. And he used mass amounts of paper, which when he was alone, then he would put into his toilet, causing backups on a daily basis for which the plumber had to come and unstop. He is thus no longer allowed to have any paper. When the tablets came out, he was given a tablet, but immediately broke it, so he no longer has one. And he's had no family contact for years. Any thoughts about him? It is really sad. Um, and I worked with him when I was still there. I saw him decompensate. At first, he was able to come out and have a kind of normal conversation with me, but after a couple years, he really didn't make any sense. Um, he did do a stint in a state hospital for evaluation, did really well there, was out running around on the unit and hung out. He was very social, was hanging out with the other people in the psychiatric hospital, and did great and was found to be competent and sent back to incarceration, where he went right back to where he had been. Um,
Anita, I'm wondering, so I presume then, since there is at least some evidence that he had been more functional, when he was in the state hospital, did maybe some of those medications travel with him when he was incarcerated? Some meds that could maybe help take the edge off and help him be less potentially violent to other people, which then might crack a door to being able to help reestablish some additional human contact for him?
He is not at all violent, and he was not on any medication when he was there at the state hospital.
No medication. Okay.
Mm-mm. I think it was just that he wasn't bored stiff, locked in a cell.
Uh-huh. Okay. Was his crime a violent crime?
It was rape.
Hmm.
Yes. But, he didn't, yes, he raped her, but he didn't like beat her up or stab her, or there was nothing like that. I mean, he is not violent per se. He's never been violent to staff or other incarcerated people. He has seen the psychiatrist who has suggested some medications, but people do have the right to refuse medications, right? Because that's a part of our belief system as social workers, is that people have the right to, make their own decisions, including refusing medications that might be helpful. Um, the right, yeah, so that's the right to self-determination, which is a part of our code of ethics. We respect and promote the right of clients to self-determine and assist them in their efforts to identify and clarify their goal. And we only limit that self-determination when a client's actions pose serious, foreseeable, and imminent risk to themselves or others. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like state hospitals have become so limited in the ability for people to receive treatment in state hospitals. And
What are you doing, mister?
what?
Sorry, I'm trying to entertain him.
Say again? Sorry. So, uh, yeah, a chalkboard or dry erase board. I mean, that wouldn't be something that they would allow him to have in his cell. And he would probably just flush the chalk. Um, well, he had the tablet. Somebody said access to a computer, but he had the tablet and broke it. And the tablet has lots of really cool programming on it. Like it has some great stuff on it, movies, books. But I think that because of his intellectual disabilities, he can't like really focus. Now, maybe he could watch TV shows, but I don't think he couldn't sit down and read a book. He doesn't have that ability to sit and focus that long. He probably has like ADHD, and when he was out running around at the hospital, he could talk to people, he could be social, he was kept busy, he had a little job. I don't remember what they had him doing. Um, but like probably if we could have let him out to be kind of a mascot or something on the tier, he probably would have done great at that. But that's really thinking outside the box for a maximum security prison that wants to control everybody's movement. Um, so yeah, it's tough. So let's look at another one. A transgender woman has been on segregation at a maximum security male facility for several years because she's afraid to be in general population. She has a serious mental health diagnosis and is also very litigious. She believes that she should be housed in a female institution. However, she previously murdered another female while she was at a state hospital to absorb her female essence. Not to mention, she still has her male genitalia, which could cause a lot of problems if housed in a woman's facility. What are your thoughts? Again, let's start with the ethical principles of social work. What are the ethical principles that would apply to this situation? Any thoughts? Well, let's think about, I mean, what could happen when it says could cause a lot of problems if housed? What could happen? Moving him to a female facility, moving her to a female facility. So apparently another state tried that. It might have been Connecticut. I can't remember. One of those small northern states tried putting a transgender woman in a female facility and ended up with a whole bunch of pregnant incarcerated women and a lot of sexual assault lawsuits on their hands. So for that reason, I think there's a lot of concern about placing individuals who still could make children in a female facility. One of the things that they also say about, well, she already murdered another woman, so we can't put her in the female facility, but we certainly have a lot of men in the male facility who have murdered other men, and yet they're still incarcerated together. So although that is an argument that has been given to me, I don't buy that argument. Because, we have all these men who've murdered each other all the time. Trans folks aren't usually violent. I don't, other than she did murder this other woman, but she hasn't been violent otherwise. She is indeed at risk in a male facility. But then there's, the women at the female facility would be at risk of impregnation. It is her choice to be, it is her choice to be in segregation. She does not have to be in segregation. Not all transgender women are, we have other transgender people who are incarcerated at North Branch, and not all of them are in segregation. Many of them are in general population and do fine. Somebody said this is probably not an issue because I don't think it would be allowed in West Virginia, that they wouldn't allow her to move to a female facility in West Virginia. And of course, the other interesting issue is just transgender people at all. In Maryland, mostly because of this client who is very litigious, anybody who is diagnosed, who is transgender, is able to start taking hormone therapy now. And that probably happened about 5 years ago. In the past, it was just people who were incarcerated who had already been receiving hormone therapy could continue it, but we didn't allow anybody new to start it. But now we have been allowing new transgender people to start taking the hormone therapy. And in Maryland, we do have a specialist who consults with us and helps us do the right thing with some of our transgenders people. Yeah, I'm sure it is a terrible experience for a transgender person. It's hard to get the things that you need as a female in a man's facility. There's always an issue with, like, she is entitled to female commissary items, but of course, we don't routinely stock those at a male facility. So the people have to, remember to stock the things that the transgender people need. Again, we're not very good at that in these uh, correctional systems. Um, some people think that we should have maybe a separate tier unit facility somewhere for people who are trans. And that has been talked about a lot. That way they would feel safer. We could offer a lot of services specifically for the transgender population. It would be easier to make sure we had the things that were needed. Um, I don't know that there is a best practice approach. I think that we're still trying to figure this out. And because correctional systems aren't always very good at doing the right thing, it's kind of low on the totem pole, this issue. Um, so it is certainly one. I know that this client that I'm talking about, she is also very well connected with a lot of advocacy organizations that have like reached out to the people at headquarters to kind of make the Maryland system do what they're supposed to do, and that has been helpful. So although she is seen being very litigious makes you seem very problematic, but she has truthfully done a lot of good work for the transgender population in Maryland, even though she's seen as being a problem. So let's talk about the next one. A 19-year-old man comes to the facility. It's his first incarceration. He's a thin white male, about 5'5" tall, with long hair, and is incarcerated for a child sex offense. He is kept on segregation indefinitely for his safety. Why would that be? Won't kill him, or yeah, so he is going to be a target, but not only for beating or murder, what else? Yes, he's a prime target for rape. And in fact, actually was raped during his incarceration, because they insisted on double selling him, and he was raped and hogtied and beat up pretty badly. So now they keep him single-celled for the most part. But again, he's young. Should he be in a single cell by himself? How do we keep him safe? Yeah, he's got all of the prime things that make him a target in a correctional facility. What do we do? So I was hoping to get a lot more conversation, um, but I guess people are just kind of used to watching and listening. Um, but there are many ethical considerations when working at a correctional facility for a social worker, and sometimes it can be a really difficult place to work because when we talk about the basic core values of social work, we believe in social justice, and correctional places just aren't very just. Even though we call it the criminal justice system, it's not. um, Yeah, somebody suggested separate areas for different offenders. That's probably a good idea in some ways, but it would be logistically difficult to carry out. Again, you already have these big facilities that are built in certain ways and it costs money to make modifications, and nobody has any money to do things like that. So if you said this tier was for transgender people and the tier houses 96 people and you only have 30, what are you going to do with the rest of the tier? So, there's all these logistical problems about, okay, well, who would you put with who, and how can you sell people together? Um, it's So what criteria are used to make solitary confinement decisions? Again, it's this team of people that are case managers, and in our system, that's people with bachelor's degrees in anything, that come and work in the system, and they make all the decisions about housing. That they and the administration of the facility make the decisions about housing and what would be the most safe for people. Um, Most people convictions, there's no confidentiality once you've been convicted of a crime. Like in Maryland, we have a website called Maryland Judiciary website, and you can look up what anybody has been charged with or gone to court for. It is out there for the general public. And particularly people who have high profile crimes. A lot of them, we have a thing called protective custody. So people that have been involved in high profile crimes, law enforcement people who are convicted of crimes and sent to incarceration are often on protective custody. And it's really basically segregation as well. But it really is to keep people safe. So there's no confidentiality, and generally, like people who are sex offenders who are incarcerated do try to lie about their charges or just be very vague about it because they don't really want other people to know. But, again, anybody that has access to the computer can look it up. Um, it's sad that doing the right thing revolves around having money. Yeah. Yeah. But doesn't it in the state? And, um, yeah, do policymakers really care about this population? I mean, let's face it, society doesn't really care about this population. The number of people that have said to me, just feed them bread and water and let them rot. That's how a lot of our society views people who are incarcerated if they haven't had a loved one who are incarcerated. So to get society to put a lot of money into correctional systems is unlikely. And yes, the political climate's unfavorable towards this population, and really, for the most part, always has been. And the trans population is even more discriminated against. Yeah, so somebody who's trans and has been incarcerated, now you have the double whammy when you're going back to the community of trying to find your way in the community and be successful, have a successful transition. Um, yeah, prisoners, people who are incarcerated, many of them have friends and relatives on the outside who will look up stuff for them on the computer. So although they might themselves don't have access to a lot of information or can't, do internet research, um, they can get other people to look things up for them. Yeah, people who are incarcerated deserve fair, firm, and impartial, which is the adage that we're taught in our system here in Maryland when you go to the academy, which even social workers go to the correctional officers academy when they start, and we are taught that fair, firm, and impartial, which does fit right in kind of with our social work beliefs. We believe in social justice. We believe in dignity and the worth of all people, despite their crime or, some of the things that they've done. We also believe that people can change. And I think that a lot of lawmakers struggle with that. You are the crime that you committed when you were 18, even though you're 55 now. when really, as social workers, we know that people change and that they, can be a completely different person now at 55 than they were at 18. So as social workers, we believe in the importance of human relationships. And we know that human relationship is the main facilitator of change for people. And yet when we keep people who are struggling on solitary confinement, they're missing out on that human relationship part and the importance to change. So what do we do instead? Well, there's a number of state correction systems in the US, North Dakota, Maine, and Colorado, who have cut the use of solitary confinement nearly in half by emphasizing time, resources, and services that nurture human relationships. So although people are on segregation, they're providing, like, most of the day, people in segregation are out of their cell receiving job training, educational services, treatment services. So they are kept separate from the rest of the population, but they are still out of their cells most of the day receiving services that have been helpful and have reduced violence and disruption in their facilities. However, in North Dakota, their correctional system only has 1,700 people. In Maine, it's 1,800 people. Colorado is 18,000 people. So that's more similar to Maryland. Maryland, we have 16,000 people who are incarcerated. So if Colorado was able to do it, we should be able to do it in other states too. But it's going to cost more money. You're going to have, more treatment staff, more education staff. You have to have more staff to provide this higher level of services, right? So that's going to be more money up front, but it'll probably save money in the long term. So, we have this need to hold individuals accountable for their actions. But instead of being caught up in that accountability, that I think that society kind of wants, is that we have to understand why people do the things that we do, which as social workers, we understand that, right? We know, hey, a lot of this goes to where people came from and the experiences that we had. We now know that a lot of people's behavior is rooted in their traumatic experiences that they had. Many inmates, people who are incarcerated, have many of the ACEs. In their, if you do the ACE test with them, they say yes for a lot of those. So we know that trauma is a big part of why people behave the way we do. They do that they do, but we're not doing a good job at addressing those needs of people. We need to provide better treatment services, and think about corrections. Instead of thinking about it as punishment, we need to really start thinking about it as rehabilitation. And as a society, we have not done that. So again, we have to address the underlying issues: substance abuse, trauma, mental health, and foster an environment of healing and rehabilitation. And we're seeing, again, other countries are really doing a much better job at this than we are. But, they're putting a lot more money into it and more effort and viewing it differently than we view it. We seem to have this need to really punish people and hold people accountable in this country. So how to help somebody? Remember, we talked about that post-incarceration syndrome. So if you work with people who have been incarcerated, again, remember that this PICS can last for 5 years, up to 5 years after being released from incarceration. And they need to have access to mental health treatment, support and resources during reentry. Housing, employment are always an issue for people coming out of incarceration. Education and job training, need to help people acquire the skills they need to enter the workforce. And particularly if we're talking about somebody who's been incarcerated for a long period of time, think about how technology has changed so much. I've had people released who have never used an ATM. have no idea what you do with a cell phone. Um, so we have to kind of think about those things and how we can help people adjust and transition. Peer support, all of these peer support people, it's wonderful how that has really grown and blossomed in the last couple of years, the number of peer support programs. Because, if anybody really understands what it's like to come home from being incarcerated, is somebody else who's done it and been successful. So, that's great. And just reducing the stigma, and that's again kind of something that social workers, we all try to do, is reduce the stigma for the people that we work with. So how can you help? So there are some organizations who are out there advocating for the reduction of solitary confinement. The National Religious Campaign Against Torture, or NARCAT, advocates for humane alternatives to solitary confinement. And they mostly work in Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. But they have been very active. They introduce legislation in Maryland every year regarding solitary confinement and trying to push the Maryland system to do better. And they have been nominally successful in their legislative work. Social Workers and Allies Against Solitary Confinement. This is a group which was actually started by a former executive director of the Maryland chapter of NASW. And after she retired, I don't really know how, she got into solitary confinement because she actually read a book written by Mary Boozer, who is a social worker and was the assistant director of mental health on Rikers Island for about a year before she couldn't do it anymore. So Mary Boozer wrote this book called Lockdown on Rikers, which I really recommend if you're at all interested in this topic. It's called Lockdown on Rikers, Mary Boozer, and she is a social worker and worked with people on segregation at Rikers Island. And so Moya read that book and became very interested in advocating against solitary confinement. And eventually, she and Mary co-founded this group called Social Workers and Allies Against Solitary Confinement. And they're really trying to educate people about solitary confinement, segregation. They meet monthly, one evening a week, or one evening a month, and they have a newsletter that they send out periodically. So that's a really interesting organization to get involved in if you want to advocate against solitary confinement. And also, there's a Facebook page in solitary confinement in West Virginia. If you're on Facebook, I would recommend that you go on that page and, learn more about solitary confinement and how it's used in West Virginia, and, work to ensure we're not misusing it in our state. So, any other thoughts, questions, comments? Whoops. What's the one thing you wish other social workers knew about working in a prison? I think that, some people think that it's really hard to work with incarcerated people and that they're difficult and treatment resistant, but that's not really true. I have found that most of the incarcerated people that I have worked with have always been very appreciative of the assistance that we give them and the treatment that we provide. And really, the hardest thing about working in corrections is the other staff who don't believe that people deserve the help that social workers offer. Um, we're always called tree huggers in the institution and inmate lovers and other kind of derogatory names because, yeah, we're there to help people. But, I think it's been fascinating working with people who are incarcerated. We do mostly group work with them to cognitive-based, behaviorally-based group work. And like to see the light bulb come on when they kind of get it, it's pretty amazing. Yes, so a lot of the problem with the increased levels of people with mental health issues, somebody mentioned about when they closed the psychiatric hospitals back in the 80s. Really now correctional facilities have become the de facto mental health places. And, we have a lot of people with serious mental illness who really should be in a state hospital, not in a maximum security prison. Because, we don't have the ability to offer them the services they should be having, they should be receiving. And probably there are people in state hospitals that are dangerous and violent that probably would be better off incarcerated because they are dangerous. But we haven't done a very good job at sorting that out. So the evaluation survey is there in the chat. Thank you to everyone who attended. And if you have any questions later or anything, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, your vignettes were very, thought-provoking. I personally don't have much experience with working with incarcerated folks, but definitely challenged me to think a little bit more and also realizing the great injustices that are in our justice system. And yeah, and as social workers, we're advocating for individuals and, our dignity and worth of the person and autonomy. The system is not set up for that.
No.
Very challenging. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Well, thank you to everybody.
yeah.
Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much. And everyone else, you'll be getting an email probably later today with your CEU. But yeah, if you need anything, you can send me an email. But thank you again, Anita. And this was very informative. Yeah.
Thank you. Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Bye.
They're just waiting a second for. Okay. I'll go ahead and end it now. Yeah.
All right.
All
I'll
right.
see ya.
Yep. Bye.